I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda. Change for good. And I embrace that and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it.
The King's official birthday. Trooping the Colour. The single most photographed display of family unity the British monarchy performs every year, and behind the composed smiles, according to multiple sources close to the family, something had just cracked. London, June 2026. A balcony that has held 1,000 photographs. For people are standing on it, smiling for a fifth time in front of a crowd that cannot see what's happening behind their eyes. I want you to look closely at this moment. Because everyone else did too. And almost nobody understood what they were actually looking at. King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William, Princess Kate. Hours earlier, maybe less, Kate and William were reportedly told a piece of news neither of them had signed off on, neither of them had asked for, and neither of them, by several accounts, particularly wanted. Prince Harry was coming back. Not alone this time. With Meghan. With Archie, who is 7 now.
There is a house tucked into the village of Laycock in Wiltshire, hidden behind hedgerows and old stone walls, that has quietly shaped nearly 30 years of one woman's life.
With Lilibet, who is 5 and has never really known this country at all. The last time Meghan Markle stood on British soil was September 2022. A funeral. Queen Elizabeth's. That was almost 4 years ago. Now, sources say, the King had quietly opened the door. And William and Kate found out the way you find out your house is being sold, after the decision, not before it. Here's the part one need you to sit with for a second. This wasn't whispered in a private hallway weeks in advance, with time to prepare a face for the cameras. According to reporting from royal correspondents who covered this family for a living, William and Kate were informed shortly before the balcony appearance. Before the flypast. Before the wave. Which means the smile you saw that day, the one that made headlines about royal unity, may have been assembled in real time, over news that had just landed like a dropped plate in the next room. One insider described the mood around the family that day in a single word. Frosty. Another detail, smaller, but somehow louder than the headlines, William and his family reportedly skipped the traditional lunch that follows Trooping the Colour. The one where the family regroups indoors, out of the cameras, and actually talks to each other. They left early instead. Ask yourself what that means, coming from a family whose entire public existence depends on looking like nothing is wrong. Hi, viewers, quick question before we go further, and I want an honest, one-word answer in the comments. Have you ever found out something important about your own family secondhand, after the decision was already made? Yes or no? Just that. I'll read them. Now, back to the balcony. Because the story of what happened up there isn't really about a balcony at all. It's about 4 years of silence finally colliding with a security clearance form. Let me back up. Prince Harry has returned to the UK several times since he and Meghan stepped back from royal duties in 2020. Quick trips. In and out. Alone, mostly. A visit here, a court appearance there, a charity event, a quiet drive past a cemetery. But Meghan hasn't come back. Not once.
It is not a palace. It has no staterooms, no ceremonial gates, no line of tourists waiting outside.
Not since the funeral. And the children, Archie and Lilibet, have essentially grown up as strangers to the country their father was born a prince in. So when word spread that the whole family might return together for an event tied to the Invictus Games in Birmingham, it wasn't just another royal news cycle. It was the first real test, in 4 years, of whether this family could occupy the same island again. And almost immediately, the test started failing. Here's where it gets complicated, and where I need you to pay close attention, because this is the part almost nobody explains properly. This was never really about whether Harry was welcome to visit his own father. It was about a letter code you've probably never heard of. RAVEC. The Royal and VIP Executive Committee. RAVEC is the body that decides who gets UK police protection, and under what circumstances. When Harry and Meghan stepped back from royal duties in 2020, RAVEC downgraded their automatic security. Harry fought that decision in court. he lost in May last year. Since then, every time Harry wants to bring his family to Britain, security isn't guaranteed. It gets negotiated, case by case, visit by visit. And this time, according to Harry's own spokesperson, the sticking point was never where the family would sleep. It was whether they'd be protected everywhere they went while they were here. The spokesperson put it plainly, safe housing is only one piece of a security plan, because risk doesn't stay in one building, it follows the person. Sit with that phrase for a second. Risk follows the person. That's not a complaint. That's a warning.
It is a 19th century countryside home with 12 acres of gardens, a swimming pool, stabling for horses, and views that roll gently down toward the River Avon.
King Charles, according to people close to him, wanted to see his son. Wanted, even more, to see the grandchildren he hasn't held in person in 4 years. Reports say he offered the Sussexes a stay at a royal residence, accommodation that would have come with automatic police protection attached, simply by virtue of the address. And for a moment, it looked like the deadlock might finally break. Then it didn't. Because accommodation was never actually the argument. The argument was about what happens the moment that family steps outside the gate. And that part, the part that actually mattered, was reportedly left unresolved. Harry, sources say, was devastated. Not angry. Devastated. There's a difference, and I think it matters here. Anger looks for someone to blame. Devastation just sits there, in the wreckage of something you let yourself hope for. And so, less than a week before the visit, a new detail emerged that changed the entire shape of this story. Harry would come to the UK. He'd honour his commitment to the Invictus Games one-year countdown event in Birmingham on the 9th and 10th of July. But Meghan and the children would not be joining him in London. The threat assessment, according to people close to the family, was serious enough that Harry made the call himself. Not out of spite, not as a statement, but because he apparently no longer trusted that his wife and his children would be safe in the capital without full protection. There was talk they might still join him for events outside London. Nothing confirmed. Everything, at this stage, still hanging. Which means, as of right now, there is a real chance that King Charles, a man whose own health has been a quiet, constant undercurrent in every one of these stories, may not get to see his grandchildren at all. For years of distance. One brief window.
Ownership of that house quietly changed hands. To understand why this matters, you have to go back to 1995.
And even that window may close before it opens. Now go back with me, one more time, to that balcony. Because here's what nobody watching that broadcast could have known. William and Kate weren't just performing Unity for the cameras that day. They were doing it while absorbing news that, by multiple accounts, felt to them like a decision made over their heads, about a woman and a set of grandchildren connected to years of hurt they have never fully discussed in public. One royal commentator, a former household insider who worked closely with the family for years, didn't hedge his language when asked about it. He said William and Kate have every reason to feel, in his words, stabbed in the back. Harsh. Maybe too harsh. But it's not nothing that someone who used to work inside that world would choose those exact words, on the record, with his name attached. And Kate, this is the part people miss, isn't simply angry. According to people close to her, she's something more complicated than angry. Conflicted. She's said to still care about Harry. Still hold something warm for the brother-in-law she used to laugh with before everything split apart. But Meghan's return, sources say, changes the entire equation for her. Not because of one incident. Because of years of them, stacked up, one on top of the other, until forgiveness stopped feeling like a single decision and started feeling like a debt that never gets fully paid down. If Harry were coming alone, the tone around this whole visit might be completely different. He isn't. And it isn't. So here is where I want to leave you for now. Not with an answer, because there isn't one yet, but with the exact question that every person inside that family is reportedly asking behind closed doors. Somebody, in that brief window before the balcony, chose the moment William and Kate would be told. Somebody decided it would happen quietly, privately, with almost no time to process it before stepping in front of the cameras. We don't know who made that call. We don't know why it was timed that way. Buckingham Palace has said nothing publicly. Kensington Palace has said nothing publicly. And in a family built entirely on the idea that everyone moves in formation, that silence might be the loudest detail in this entire story.
It was the place where a woman who had lost her marriage and was about to become one of the most talked about figures in Britain could quietly rebuild a life away from public view.
Because somewhere inside those walls, someone knew exactly what they were setting off. And they let the balcony happen anyway. To understand why a balcony smile could hide so much, you have to go back further than this June. You have to go back 6 years, to a January afternoon in 2020, when 2 words rewrote the future of the British monarchy. Megxit. That's what the tabloids called it. Harry and Meghan called it something else. Stepping back. They walked away from official royal duties. Moved first to Canada, then to California. Gave up the taxpayer-funded protection that came automatically with senior royal status. Built a life 3,000 miles from the palace gates. And here's the detail that matters most, the one that quietly sets up everything else in this story. When they step back, their security stepped back with them. Not immediately erased. Downgraded. Reassessed. Handed over to a committee most people in Britain had never heard of, and still haven't. We'll get to that committee. It becomes the whole engine of this story later. But first, the years in between. Harry has come back to the UK several times since 2020. Court appearances. A charity event here. An award ceremony there. Quick trips, in and out, almost always alone. Meghan has come back 0 times. Read that again. 0. Not since September 2022, when she stood, veiled, at the funeral of a queen who had been alive her entire time inside this family. For years. 2 children growing up an ocean away from the country their father was born a prince in. A grandmother, Kate, they have never really gotten to know. A grandfather, Charles, who has, by multiple accounts, been aching to see them and hasn't been able to. This is the part that gets lost in the noise of headlines about security clearances and accommodation arrangements. Underneath all of it is something much simpler and much sadder. A family that used to share Christmas mornings now negotiates through spokespeople and committees just to be in the same country. So when word came that Harry, Meghan, and both children might return together this July, it wasn't just a diary entry for royal watchers. It was the first real test, in 4 years, of whether reconciliation was even still possible. Or whether too much had already happened. Because plenty had already happened. There was Harry's memoir. There was the Netflix docuseries. There were interviews, podcasts, public statements that peeled back decades of private grievance for anyone with a subscription to read or watch. William, according to people close to him, felt every one of those disclosures like a wound reopening. One royal biography, drawing on sources inside the household, describes William and Kate clashing directly over how to handle Harry's departure, not a single argument, but a fracture that widened with every public revelation that followed. And then there's a detail almost too raw to say plainly, but it's been reported, and it matters. Royal writer Tom Sykes, who covers this family closely, has claimed William privately blames the stress of the rift for making Kate's cancer fight harder than it needed to be. Sit with that for a moment. If even partly true, that's not tabloid gossip anymore. That's a brother who has decided, somewhere in his own mind, that his siblings' choices contributed to his wife's suffering. You cannot build a reunion on top of that without addressing it first. And nobody, as far as we know, has addressed it. There were other wounds too. Smaller, but they add up. A trip Harry and Meghan took to Jordan drew sharp private criticism, with Kate reportedly viewing it as another instance of the Sussexes trading on royal-adjacent status while claiming to have left it behind. Reports have also described William as unreachable when Harry has tried to call. Not a slammed phone. Just silence. The kind of silence that says more than an argument ever could. So by the time this July trip was even a possibility, the ground underneath it was already unstable. Years of public disclosures on one side. Years of private hurt on the other. A cancer diagnosis tangled, at least in one brother's mind, with the fallout from all of it. And now, into that fragile terrain, walks a 5-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy who have barely met their own grandfather. Because that's what almost gets forgotten in every one of these stories. Archie and Lilibet aren't chess pieces in a family dispute. They're children who, through no decision of their own, have spent their whole lives on the wrong side of an ocean from half their family. King Charles wants to see them. That part, at least, nearly everyone close to this story agrees on. Whatever else divides this family, the king's desire to hold his grandchildren again isn't in serious dispute. What's in dispute is everything standing between that wish and its fulfillment. And that brings us to the part of this story that isn't about old wounds at all. It's about a committee, a court case, and a fight over something as basic as whether a family can walk down a London street without being in danger. Because the next chapter isn't really about feelings anymore. It's about a decision made 6 years ago that is still, right now, keeping a grandfather from his grandchildren. There is a committee in Britain that most citizens will never interact with, never vote for, never even hear named in casual conversation. And yet, for the last 6 years, it has quietly held more power over one family's future than almost any other institution in the country. RAVEC, the Royal and VIP Executive Committee. Its job, in simple terms, is to decide who receives police protection in the United Kingdom and under what circumstances. Not the King. Not the Prime Minister. This committee. In 2020, when Harry and Meghan stepped back from official royal duties, RAVEC made its decision. Their automatic, taxpayer-funded protection was downgraded. No longer guaranteed. No longer constant. Reassessed, case by case, visit by visit, for a family that used to be surrounded by it without a second thought. Harry didn't accept that quietly. He took it to court, arguing the decision put his family at risk. He lost that legal challenge in May of last year. Since then, every single UK visit has come with a negotiation attached. Not about whether he's welcome. About whether he's safe. This July was supposed to be different. Sources close to Harry suggested there was real optimism building, a sense that after years of legal defeat and diplomatic silence, something might finally be shifting. King Charles, according to people close to him, offered a solution. Stay at a royal residence. Because protection at a royal residence is automatic. It comes with the address, not with a negotiation. For a moment, that must have felt like the door opening. Then came the catch, and it's the catch that actually explains everything that happened next. A royal residence solves where you sleep. It does nothing for where you go. And Harry's family wasn't planning to stay inside a gate for 5 days. There were engagements. Public appearances tied to the Invictus Games. Movement across cities. Exactly the kind of movement that, according to Harry's own spokesperson, is where the real risk lives. The spokesperson's language on this point has been unusually direct for a family that typically communicates through euphemism. The issue, they said, was never accommodation. The issue is whether appropriate and proportionate protection exists for the entire visit, not just the parts that happen behind a fence. There's one more detail buried in that statement that deserves its own moment, because it quietly indicts the whole process. RAVEC itself, back in November, agreed that an independent risk management board needed to review this case. That review still hasn't happened. Let that sit for a second. The very body making the decision agreed, months ago, that it needed more information before it could fairly make that decision. And the review it asked for has simply never occurred. So what you're left with is a security arrangement that even its own architects considered incomplete, applied anyway, to a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. The UK government, for its part, has defended the system publicly, describing its approach to protective security as rigorous and proportionate. Whether that description survives contact with a case its own committee flagged as needing further review is, at minimum, a fair question. And here's where the story takes its sharpest turn. According to reporting close to the family, Harry was left devastated when it became clear the review wouldn't happen in time and the security guarantee he needed wouldn't be there. Not furious. Devastated. Somewhere behind that distinction is a father making a decision no father should have to make. Because Harry made the call himself. Meghan and the children would not be joining him in London. He would still come. He would still stand in Birmingham on the 9th and 10th of July, honouring a commitment to the Invictus Games he built over a decade ago, marking 1 year until the 2027 Games arrive in that city. But he would come without them. There is still talk, unconfirmed, fragile, the kind of detail that could evaporate by the time you're watching this, that Meghan and the children might join him for events somewhere outside London. Nothing settled. Everything provisional. And underneath all of it sits a detail almost too painful to say plainly. There is a report that Harry, in the days leading into this decision, was close to tears discussing it. Whatever you think of the politics here, of who's right and who's stubborn, a father choosing to leave his own children on another continent because he cannot guarantee their safety in his home country is not a small thing. It's not a headline. It's a decision that will follow that family long after this news cycle fades. One more detail, and then we move forward. There's speculation, still unconfirmed, that Harry has been sweeping rooms during this visit, checking for surveillance devices, a claim reported alongside suggestions that the strain of these years has left him in a state some have described as spiraling. Take that claim with real caution. It comes from unnamed sources, filtered through outlets that don't always get it right. But even as speculation, it tells you something about the emotional temperature surrounding this trip. Nobody describing it uses the word calm. So here is where this chapter leaves you. A father is coming home without his wife and children. A grandfather may not get to hold his grandchildren after 4 years of waiting. And a committee that admitted, months ago, it needed more information before deciding any of this has simply run out the clock. But security was never the only battlefield here. Because while Ravek was failing to schedule its own review, another fight was happening entirely inside the family. Quieter. Colder. And in some ways, far more revealing than anything a committee could decide. That fight didn't involve the government at all. It involved a king, his wife, and the son who was never supposed to have to compete with his brother for his father's loyalty. Every family disagreement has a moment where it stops being about the surface issue and starts being about loyalty. This is that moment. Because according to a report that circulated in the first days of July, Prince William and Queen Camilla are, of all people, on the same side of this argument. And King Charles is, by multiple accounts, standing alone on the other side of it. Let that configuration sink in for a second, because it's not the one you'd expect. Camilla and William haven't always been described as close. Their relationship, across 2 decades of royal reporting, has been characterized more often as respectful distance than warmth. And yet here, on the single most emotionally loaded question this family has faced in years, they are reportedly standing together. Against the king. A source described Camilla as unenthusiastic about the reunion, warning Charles directly that he was taking what she called a huge gamble. Not a passing concern. A warning delivered to her own husband about his own son. And Charles, according to the same reporting, didn't back down. He's described as having dug in, believing something plainly and stubbornly, that the ongoing feud is doing more damage to this family than any awkward, uncomfortable reunion ever could. Read those two positions side by side. Camilla, worried about the risk of bringing Harry and Meghan back into the fold. Charles, worried about the risk of never trying at all. One royal watcher, commenting on the situation, didn't hedge. They called the outcome a huge victory for Harry. They called it, in the same breath, a massive humiliation for William. And they described the king's decision as, in their words, a gigantic political gamble. 3 different consequences, for 3 different people, all stemming from one father's decision to open a door his wife and his heir both quietly wanted kept shut. Now bring Kate into this. because her position is the most complicated of anyone's, and it deserves to be told carefully, without flattening it into simple anger. Sources close to the Princess of Wales describe her as stressed and conflicted. Not hostile. Conflicted. She wants, by these accounts, to support the king. She's described as still holding warmth for Harry, a brother-in-law she once genuinely liked, before everything split apart. But Meghan's presence, according to insiders, changes the entire shape of the situation for her. One source close to Kate put it simply: she is an incredibly forgiving person, but years of hurt don't dissolve overnight just because a visit has been scheduled. If Harry were arriving alone, people around Kate suggest this would feel entirely different. It's Meghan's return specifically that's described as reopening wounds Kate hasn't finished processing. And then there's William. And here the language used by people who know this family gets notably less careful. On his own platform, royal writer Tom Sykes described the king's outreach as an astonishing betrayal of a loyal and dutiful heir. He reported that William has told friends he never wants to see his brother again, and believes Harry should be kept as far from the family as possible. Astonishing betrayal. Those are strong words to use about a father reaching for his own son. But they are not being used loosely. They're attributed, specifically, to what William has reportedly told people close to him. And there's a second layer to William's reported fury, one already touched on, worth stating again plainly because it changes the entire moral weight of this dispute. Sykes' reporting claims William blames the stress of this rift for making Kate's cancer recovery harder than it needed to be. If that's genuinely what William believes, even privately, even only to friends, then this was never simply a disagreement over calendars and security clearances. In William's mind, according to this reporting, his brother's choices may have made his wife sicker. You cannot reconcile a family across that gap with a photo opportunity in Birmingham. Kensington Palace has not commented on these specific claims. Buckingham Palace has stayed silent too. And in a family whose entire operating principle is coordinated messaging, that silence isn't neutral. It's a decision. Somebody, somewhere inside those walls, decided that saying nothing was safer than saying something. One former royal butler, who worked closely within the household for years, offered the bluntest assessment of anyone quoted so far. He said William and Kate have been, in his words, stabbed in the back. He added that while he doesn't expect any reunion between the two couples, simply knowing Harry and Meghan are back in the country will, in his assessment, be difficult enough on its own. According to the same account, William has stayed inside the royal institution, doing things by the book. Harry stepped outside that institution and has spoken, sometimes in painful detail, about what he says happened inside it. Two brothers. Two entirely different relationships to the same childhood. And somewhere between them, a father trying to hold a family together that increasingly seems built from two irreconcilable versions of loyalty. Charles is not naive to any of this. Reports describe him hoping quietly that a face-to-face meeting between his sons might happen during this visit, even suggesting he's tried to nudge them toward it directly. Nothing has come of that. As of this writing, nothing suggests it will. So here is the actual fault line running underneath this entire story, more precise than security dispute, more precise than family feud. A king who believes silence has cost his family more than reconciliation ever could. A wife who believes he is gambling recklessly with what's left of the family's cohesion. A son who believes his brother's choices contributed to his own wife's suffering. And a daughter-in-law caught in the middle of all three, wanting to help, unable to fully forgive, and increasingly certain that whatever happens next, someone she loves is going to end up hurt by it. Nobody has said publicly who wins that argument. But somebody already has. Because the plane is already booked. The date is already set. And what happens next is going to happen whether this family has resolved anything or not. Here is where the story stands right now. Not where it might end up. Where it actually stands, today, as these words are being spoken to you. Prince Harry is set to land in the United Kingdom in the coming days. Birmingham, specifically. The 9th and 10th of July. engagements tied to the Invictus Games Foundation, marking 1 year until the 2027 Games arrive in that city. A competition he built from nothing over a decade ago for wounded and injured service members who had nowhere else to compete and nowhere else to be seen. He will be there. That part is settled. What isn't settled is who's standing beside him. Meghan is not expected in London. Neither are Archie nor Lilibet. The security guarantee that would have made their presence safe, by Harry's own account, never fully materialized. And so a father made a decision no father wants to make, and left the two most important people in his daily life on another continent, rather than risk them on this one. There is still a fragile possibility hanging in the air. Some reporting suggests the family might reunite for events outside London, away from the capital's more concentrated risk. Nothing has been confirmed. By the time you hear this, that detail may have already changed, one way or the other. And somewhere in the background of all this sits a detail almost too quiet to notice, and almost too significant to ignore. Althorpe House, the childhood home of Princess Diana, the place where she is buried, has reportedly listed itself as closed to the public on the 10th and 11th of July. Nobody has confirmed why. Nobody has confirmed what that closure means. But if you were a father trying to give your children one private, unguarded moment with the grandmother they never got to meet, an empty estate on exactly those dates would be one way to do it. Take that as speculation. Not fact. But speculation, in this story, has had a habit of turning into fact a few days later. Now, the piece that started this whole chain of events. King Charles. He wanted this. According to nearly every source close to this story, wanted it more than anyone. Wanted to see his son. Wanted, even more, to finally hold the grandchildren he has been separated from for 4 years. And there is a real chance, right now, today, that he still won't get to. Not because he changed his mind. Not because Harry refused to come. But because a security committee that admitted, months ago, it needed to conduct a further review simply never got around to conducting it. Because a wife and an heir both quietly believed this reunion was a mistake. Because years of accumulated hurt don't dissolve just because a visit gets scheduled. If Charles misses this window, there is no guarantee another one comes. His health has been a quiet undercurrent running beneath every one of these stories for 2 years now. Nobody says that part out loud very often. It's worth saying once, plainly, here. Time is not a limitless resource for the man at the center of this story. So where does that leave the rest of the family? It leaves William, reportedly still refusing to entertain any real reconciliation, having told friends, according to one widely discussed report, that he never wants to see his brother again. It leaves Kate, caught between loyalty to her husband and a quieter, more complicated hope that this doesn't have to be permanent. It leaves Camilla, having warned her husband directly that he was taking a gamble, watching to see whether that warning was right. And it leaves Charles, the one person in this entire story who seemingly wanted nothing more than his family back in one room, watching the door he opened close anyway, for reasons entirely outside his control. Nobody in this story is a villain. That's the part worth sitting with, more than any single detail about security clearances or palace silence. Every person named here is protecting something they consider precious. A marriage, a wife's recovery, a father's dwindling time, a mother's forgiveness that hasn't finished healing. They are simply protecting those things from each other. That's rarely how these stories get told. Usually somebody gets cast as the villain because villains are easier to watch than grief. But watch closely, and there isn't one here. Just a family running out of time to fix something, and running out of agreement on whether fixing it is even still possible. Harry lands in days. The cameras will be waiting in Birmingham. Somewhere behind those cameras, a king will be watching too, waiting to find out if this is the visit where something finally begins to heal, or simply one more chapter in a story that keeps almost happening, and never quite arriving. We don't know yet which one this is. But we will, very soon. Harry lands within days. The Birmingham engagements are locked into the calendar. And 2 questions are still sitting there, completely unresolved. that nobody inside that family has answered publicly. Does Charles get his window with Archie and Lilibet, or does it close for good this time? And if Meghan does join Harry somewhere outside London, where exactly does that leave the two brothers, who still, as of tonight, are not speaking? Both of those answers are likely to land within days, not weeks. When they do, we'll be back with exactly what happened, sourced the same way everything in this story has been, no speculation dressed up as fact, no invented drama. Just what's actually confirmed, as soon as it's confirmed.